I was chatting with the electrician who will be wiring the building, and he asked me a profound question. Are you enjoying building it? The question was so obvious, yet so important, that I paused and thought. Yes, I am enjoying building it, I finally replied. In this video, I will show you the finished windows, the exterior black paint, some really cool copper vents. I'll tell you how much it costs so far. I'll clean and organize, tour the building as it exists so far. And there will be some bonus rabbit holes. Full disclosure, I've been working on this building for about a year now. That's not real fast progress. I didn't think it would take me this long to build a 120 square foot building, but my time estimates are notoriously ridiculous. I could say that I have a full-time architectural practice, but I don't think that's the real reason for my slow progress. Subconsciously, I think I build slowly because I want to enjoy building. Of course, I want to do things well, or as well as I can. That is critical because doing something poorly just kills my motivation. So I build as fast and as well as possible. Anyway, let's review the progress so far. First, I finished installing a lot of the windows, and then started drilling 2-inch holes for the attic vents. There is no attic in this building, but I think attic vent is clearer than space between the top of the insulation and roof sheathing vent. The vents essentially let some air move around and keep things dry. Drilling a 2-inch hole through a 2x4 is not easy, especially on a scaffolding. After the second of 16 holes, my battery-powered drill started smoking. I knew I would kill it if I kept going, so that was an excuse to buy a heavy-duty hammer drill. And that beast cut through 2x4s like butter. The extra handle to hold the drill was a bonus as well. So then I had a bunch of holes. Caulking was next. Lots and lots of caulking. It's kind of a messy and not so fun job, but it is rewarding to see the gaps filled in. They say God made a few perfect carpenters. To the rest he gave caulk. And then, finally, it was time for paint. I have to say I like painting. I can see a difference after painting. It helps my motivation. Now, some people will find the fact that I am painting wood a contradiction, and that's fine. First of all, I'm old enough that contradictions don't bother me. But it is true that I like to be as authentic as possible with material. So wood should look like wood, not be covered with paint. But sometimes, particularly on the exterior, you need paint to protect the wood, especially if you're using standard lumber and plywood. Yes, the plywood is exterior grade, but it still needs some protection. Maybe it's a cop-out, but to me, the black paint is a material. It seems to unify all the wood boards and plywood. It changes their nature, but you still know the building is made of wood boards. I also think the black paint contrasts nicely with the more natural color of the cedar rain screen to come. Making the rain screens will be the next video. I think that's going to be my favorite part of the build. Did I build this thing just so I could put a rain screen on it? I don't know. I think this will be a channel for questions. Anyway, on with the painting. I have an HVLP sprayer for woodworking finishes, and it worked great for spraying the paint. I just had to water the paint down a little bit. I decided to just spray the windows and scrape them instead of taping them up. I find momentum and mindset are important when making. My motivation was low after a lot of caulking that does not really show. I wanted to see something done, so a lot of tedious taping that would also not show progress was less desirable than just starting to spray paint. I asked AI if scraping was better than taping, and as usual, she told me what I wanted to hear. Random hack that I have to share. I got these bit holders for $7. and they are so awesome. I tend to use 3 bits in this driver: Phillips head, star drive, and 1/4-inch bolt head. I have been spending so much time looking for these bits. I never have the right one in the driver. And of course I'm at the top of the scaffolding, so I have to climb down and look for the bit I need. Now it's just a joy to have the bits I need on the driver. I'm not sure why I didn't get this a long time ago. I guess to save $7. And so finally I got the entire building painted black. Some of this black will show through and around the cedar rain screen. Black paint is kind of like the building's skin, and the rain screen is the armor. I think it's going to be cool. Then I could put in the copper vents, which was fun. Next, it was time to clean and reset for this video tour and for the electrician. I can tell the electrician is particular. He does not like working in a mess. I respect that, and I try to be more like him. But I'm not naturally organized, and my workspaces often become chaotic. I have been temporarily storing things in this building, and that has gotten out of hand. The electrician needs to get to the walls to wire the building, but more importantly, I need a mental refresh. I need to see the beauty of the building so that I want to continue working on it. But where does all the stuff go? That is a universal question. Where does all the stuff go? The shed is full, and this building is half full. I thought about renting a pod, but that just seemed like an unnecessary expense. So I started organizing and editing. An entire truckload of stuff went to the recycling center. It turns out that organized stuff takes about half the space as clutter does. I bought about $200 worth of clear plastic bins. If I can see what's inside, I can find things without pulling everything out and destroying the order. I think the bins were a good investment. A pod would have been way more expensive. Let's review the cost to date. I'm not sure I want to know how much I spent on this tiny building, but I guess it's good for me. Okay, here it is. Machine rentals to move all the earth and dig the footings, bags of concrete, rebar, gravel, pressure-treated wood for the foundation, metal plates to hold the pressure-treated wood together, galvanized bolts for the same reason, spray foam insulation for the floor, decking, pine flooring that I've now screwed up, pine framing lumber, half-inch plywood sheathing, window framing pine, and I forgot about all the extra window framing and plywood that came with the more complicated windows and weather-resistant barriers, insulated tempered glass, AC heat unit, light fixtures, asphalt shingles, grand total $12,350. That seems like a lot, but I guess it's still at about $100 per square foot, so maybe that's not too bad. Okay, this is a deep rabbit hole alert. If you're not interested in going down this hole, just fast forward. So I believe the windows and the WRB and the additional trim added unnecessary complexity to this tiny building. WRB is weather resistant barrier, if you're not a super cool acronym knowing person. But instead of getting into the details of the windows and the sheathing, I want to share another example of this idea that things can get overly complicated. Or maybe this part of the video is just an excuse to buy these cool models. These are models of a 1965 and a 2025 Shelby Mustang. I wanted to use the cars themselves, and then I checked the price. The 2025 Mustang is far more advanced in every way, we are told. After all, it has 60 years of advancement. I mean, look at this cool spoiler. But I would argue that most of the advancement was additive, and the result is overly complicated. When I added a flange to my windows, and then a weather-resistant barrier, and then a layer of plywood, and then more trim to make up the extra thickness, I complicated the build significantly. But I believe the fundamental technology of my original design would have worked, and it would have been simpler. But back to my gearhead example. The fundamental technology of a 1965 Mustang is a steel body with a V8 engine, 4-speed transmission, rear drive, springs and shocks, etc. The fundamental technology of a 2025 Mustang is a V8 engine, transmission, rear-wheel drive, etc. It is fundamentally the same. Well, it actually has a 6-speed transmission, but adding 2 gears is not a huge technological advancement. Adding gears is a refinement of the original design, just like better tires and better geometry suspension. What has changed is that it contains lots and lots and lots of computers and sensors and wiring. These additive design decisions have improved performance, but they have also added enormous complexity. They have added weight and size. The 2025 Mustang is 25% larger than the 1965 and 25% heavier. So much of the performance advancement is negated by extra size and weight. The 1965 Mustang is considered one of the best automobiles for someone to maintain due to its simplicity. I have no idea how to understand and repair most of the things on a 2025 Mustang. In fact, you typically can't even see the engine for all the stuff over top of it. You have to have computer diagnostic equipment, and you just can't repair it yourself most of the time. The complexity of a 1965 and a 2025 Mustang are entirely different. Allowing additive solutions to create ever more complexity is, I think, a serious problem. We so often don't see that the underlying technologies have not significantly changed. If I could have either Mustang, I would choose the 1965. Not because it's worth 3 times as much as the 2025, but because it is simple. It seems to me to have a balance between what it does and the complexity required to do it. But hey, this is just a simple example to illustrate my thinking. 2025 Mustangs are really cool, and I'm not an automotive historian, so don't get lost in the details here. The underlying question is a design question. Should we always improve something by adding complexity, or should we also edit? Maybe we should search for a balance between additive and subtractive solutions. And maybe it takes me so long to build things because I think too much. So this is the little building from the courtyard. Actually, this is it from the pool. This is where I usually see it from. And this is it from the end of the courtyard. What you're seeing is pine trim, plywood, and pine framing, all painted black. So I built a new ramp. And this is the space between the shed and the new tiny building. So you can see I have my scaffolding put away, and this is the building from the corner with the door and the high windows. So this is it from the wood shop. You can see the deck aligns with the door, which aligns with the joints inside the building. And then of course you see those really cool copper vents. The utility ladder is, just to be able to get on the roof, which is so cool, It's also notched in the building using the same notch I used to allow this tree to survive. This little bit of trim work kind of finishes off the gesture of the sloped windows. Here's the building from the driveway. There will be a light on the outside eventually. This is the north elevation of the building. This is the east elevation, and these are the east-facing windows. This is the west elevation with the large picture window. This is the corner of the building with the picture window and the operable window. And here you can see that my buildings tend to kind of give way to the trees. This is the building from the inside. The windows haven't been trimmed out yet, and you'll notice that the studs are not 16 inches on center as is usual. They're actually 24 inches on center, but then they're doubled so that I can put panels on them. This air conditioner and heater will be installed in the wall in the future, and the building is pretty much ready for electrical at this point. This is the other end of the building with the picture window and the operable window, and the desk will sit right here. And then most of this framing above will remain exposed. There will be some insulation and plywood, but you'll still see the rafters and a lot of this 2x material. This is the finished flooring, and you'll notice it's got some water damage. It's generally sort of distressed. The question is, and the jury's still out on this, whether it was a good idea or not. What I really wanted was that the studs would sit on the floor with no trim. So you notice how the white panel comes down and then the studs sit right on the floor and there's no trim. Now the question is, was it really worth it? Because it means I had to install the flooring first, and then it's subject to damage during construction, which is always a problem. Now I'm going to bleach it. There will be cherry plugs in all the holes, and then I'll sand it, and I think it's going to be nice. But I still wonder, ultimately, if it was really worth it. You can see above the main picture window, this is pretty much the only lintel I have in the project. This lintel supports those rafters. In all other cases, the studs align with the rafters, so there's not a lintel required. For example, these windows are spaced at 2 feet on center, same as the rafters, so there's no lintel required on top of them. All the walls will have white panels like this, and I think I'm going to use the silver screws. The ceiling is going to have plywood panels that are just oiled like this, and it will have black screws. And this window has been trimmed out, so all the other windows will be similar to this one when it's finished. In my opinion, this picture window is just awesome. And I think opening this operable window is just great fun. And here are those really cool copper vents.